All right, welcome back. This week's pretty exciting. We're going to be talking about the associate role. I think it's pretty cool because I was an associate at three different firms or three different divisions within firms. So I got a lot of different viewpoints. I saw it from a lot of different angles, and I understand the promotion process very well. So, first of all, what is an associate? So, an associate is, I think, the engine of any investment bank. You have the managing director is essentially, running the business, making the big decisions. You have the analyst doing individual tasks, but the associates are the ones that actually get the business running. And I'm going to go through that in detail as we go through responsibilities and everything like that. So let's just jump into barriers to entry. What are the barriers to become an associate? So to become an associate, either you need to be an analyst for the 1.5 or 2 years that we've mentioned last week. And that's the easiest way. You sit on a desk, sales and trading, you do your 2 years, you'll become an associate. It happens every single time. You work in risk management, you do it for 2 or 3 years, you become an associate. It happens. It's pretty straightforward. You do your task, you get promoted. If you want to become an associate in a slightly more difficult area, or you decide you want to switch to something else, the other method or path is to go to get a master's degree in a specific discipline. Now, the reason why you can't just do 2 years in one and move into another is because unlike analyst, where you're pretty much presumed to not have a lot of experience, as an associate, you're expected to have 2 years of experience, which means you need to have skills. So if you're going to go into equity research, even if you did 2 years in risk management, which is great, like you have 2 years of risk behind you, that's fantastic. But you still can't write the equity models, and that's what an associate needs to do, so you really just don't fit the role, and you just won't get the job. Now, if there was a master's degree for equity research analysts, sure, you do that and then you move right in. There happens to be none, so it's slightly more difficult to move into equity research role, but that's generally the premise. And the way it works now, especially where banking is shifting away from the old school sales and trading roles and more to the quant strategy programming type roles in the front office, this is actually really good because you can do your 2 years in any area in finance and then go and get a master's in operation research, data science, statistics, financial engineering, quant finance, any of these degrees, and then you can move into risk management. You can become a desk quant. All of these different roles you can get from any of those technical degrees, so it becomes a lot easier to kind of not get pigeonholed early in your career. So it's a really nice opportunity, and actually one of the last opportunities you'll have to kind of redefine your career in banking. So yeah, that's it. Your 2 years or your 2 years switching roles and get a master's degree. Those are typically, I would say in 90% of the cases, those cover your barriers to entry. There are exceptions, but that should be most of it. Responsibilities. So as an analyst, your role are tasks. You have to do this every day. You have to do this once a week. And you have very well-defined tasks. And you mess up on them and you learn to do them better and you're good. So it's actually very easy to be an analyst. Yeah, you make the mistakes. You get trained how to do those things better and you just do them better. So it's nice and easy. As an associate, it's much more complicated because you're not given tasks, you're given projects. And if you've never been in banking, you might think project, task, what's the difference? There's a very, very big difference. A project would be somebody walks you over to their house and says, my house is falling apart, can you fix it? A task would be, this wall needs to be repainted. Here's the paint. Can you paint it? Sure. So you move your brush up and down and you're done. As an associate, you have to get out this huge piece of paper and break down every room in the house, all the exteriors, all the walls, what exactly is broken, what the cost will be, what needs to be fixed, what materials, who you need to hire. The project management goes from basically nothing, where you're just working on tasks. Suddenly you're project managing everything, time managing everything. What's worth a phone call? What's worth an email? How do you word those emails? How do you word those phone calls? Do you set up meetings? Who do you invite to the meetings? Making sure you follow up with people. I'm focusing on these 3 tasks. Oh shoot, I forgot about that one. For 2 weeks I didn't respond to that person's email. Oh no, she's going to be so mad at me. There was so much going on suddenly. As an analyst, it was so simple. You had a task. As an associate, suddenly things are just exploding. You're dealing with 25 different people. Everyone expects you to respond to them right away, and you need to start prioritizing your work. You need to be much more engaged with your manager, very clear about what you're working on, what you think the priorities are. Usually your manager will agree with you. In some cases not, but usually yes. Always be clear, be honest when you think you're going to miss deadlines so that they can be readjusted, and also be honest with people who have given you the project, not just your manager, so that everyone's aware how long things are taking. It's much more complicated. There are just so many more layers to the associate role. And this kind of varies. Like the more technical roles, it's more like I described. In certain roles, it might be your responsibilities just expand a little bit. But generally, I've been in like 8 different roles in banking, and they've all been like this. In the associate role, you just get those bigger projects that you have to manage. Promotions and or getting fired. So what does it take? And here's where it gets really interesting. So as an analyst, it was pretty straightforward. You do your 2 years, you don't be stupid, you get promoted. Yeah, as an associate, that's not the case. So I was an associate officially in title half of 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, and then 2017 I got promoted. So almost 5 years as an associate. Now, to be fair, I had no real experience before. So you could say that was the 2 years of analyst and the 3 years of associate kind of mixed together. I hear that. Also, my salary got way bigger. It increased more than twofold in terms of base salary from when I started as an associate to when I got promoted. So again, salary plays a big role, and switching areas. But as a general rule, your target should be, after 3 years as an associate, to get promoted. But that does vary a lot. I know a woman who was an associate for 5 years like myself, which is usually pretty slow, like really slow. And then she was 2 years VP, 2 years ED, and made managing director right away, which is insanely fast. Managing director is a role that 90% of professionals don't ever achieve, probably more. So the fact that she had a really slow start, you start thinking, okay, this person doesn't know how to manage her career, and suddenly, wow, holy smokes, what just happened? So it's really kind of like a loose cannon. Not loose cannon, it's the wrong terminology, but it's really hard to exactly pinpoint what's going on with the promotion cycles. Just have those conversations with your manager, make sure you're always on top of it. And in some cases, you are going to make that decision. I'd rather see my salary go up $20,000 than get the promotion. These are decisions you have to make. Also, if you move as an associate like I did, sometimes, by the way, I say associate because that's fancier. Sometimes I say associate because that's what I usually say. So don't shoot me for changing it around. I moved twice. Every time you move, you need to wait a year or a year and a half or 2 years before you get the promotion. No firm will promote you right after you move. I mean, they might promote you through the move. That might happen. But if you're going to a role that was only assigned, like if a firm said, look, we only have an opening for an associate position, then they're not going to promote you into that role. So even if you have a bunch of years and you move into it, you're not going to get VP. So you'll come in as an associate, and then you'll have to prove yourself a year and a half to 2 years and then get the promotion. So whatever, it is what it is. And sometimes it's frustrating when it takes longer. But sometimes, like I said, you get compensated with money rather than a title. I've seen this happen to all my friends in all banks. And it's really interesting because I've actually seen people be an associate for, I think 15 years is the record I've seen. It happens. It's not like an analyst where you're more than 2 years, you're going to get fired. It's not really true. As long as you're kind of doing your projects well, managing them well. Like if you don't understand that you need to sponsor someone more senior to care for you and push you forward for that promotion, it might take a really long time for that to come through. Getting fired. Yeah, it's really, really easy to get fired as an associate. I would say it's the most popular role to get fired in, something between associate and vice president, but probably associate. And why? Because projects are so easy to mess up. Like I said, you got the schematics going. You're managing everyone else's calendar. You have to respond to all these emails. You have to prioritize what task is more important when everybody at the end of every task thinks that they are the most important. So undoubtedly, unless you are amazing, which is rare, you're going to make people upset and stressed out during your project. People who you're not prioritizing. Timelines. This just happens. I can tell you twice in my career, I was this close to getting fired, both as an associate, because I was struggling so much to just figure out, like, which emails I should be responding to quickly. Is it worth responding quickly to this one when I'm not 100% sure of my response, when I really could work on this task and then understand that response better? It's just, there's so many different things you have to juggle, and nobody really trains you for this, certainly not in school. So it's stressful and very hard. So it is actually, like, I would say easy to get fired as an associate. You really have to learn the business well, and you have to learn project management. I used to tell people the best thing to do is be a project manager before you go into finance, because you understand just how much you have to manage and from how many angles. It's a really stressful and difficult role, but very rewarding. And once you master all that, then you're really ready to be a vice president, which we'll talk about next week. So when you master that and then you become a vice president, that's when people start recognizing what an asset you are to the division. So that's the promotion and firing section of this all. So compensation. All right, there's no way you can possibly answer this question because, look, I've actually seen in investment banks people promoted to vice president in risk management at 105,000 base. I've also seen firsthand someone at $240,000 base be an associate in an investment banking division. So just listen to that difference. There was 105,000 base as a VP in risk management who got, I believe it was a $15,000 bonus. So his all-in was 120, and double his all-in was still the base of an third-year associate in investment banking. In the same investment bank, by the way. So that's why it's really hard to discuss compensation as an associate. It's usually more than analyst, unless, well, okay, I won't complicate things. It's usually more than analyst. And if you do a really good job, you can get really nice packages. In sales and trading, you could see it go, between, unless you're bad or the banks has underperformed, you should reasonably expect to make between $25,000 and $75,000 as a bonus in a sales and trading role, unless you're like actively trading and making a ton of money or working in I'm not going to get to hedge funds because it's a totally different beast. But on the investment banking side, you're an associate, you're expecting at least 100K as a bonus. Now you have to remember, that sounds great, but you have to remember you're working twice as many hours. So it's a little intense. But that could scale up much higher. You can get over 200 also. So it's a pretty wide range, no matter what division you're in. And it's a hard question to answer. And usually VP is like, you'd expect that to be so much more than associate, and it could be, but the difference between analyst and associate is so much wider. Because like as an analyst, like everyone's making 90, 95 base. As an associate, those numbers just completely differ. In different divisions, every year, the amount of raise you get in some divisions, getting a $5,000 raise is natural. In some divisions, if you didn't get $20,000 raise, you're really upset. So you kind of have to figure out the area you're going to work for. That's pretty much the way it works in an associate. Well, that was the wrap for associate. Next week, we're going to talk about vice president, the last role I held in investment banking before I made my timely exit. And yeah, I'll see you next week, and we'll talk about this exciting topic.